Dogs are man's best buddies. Not only are they enjoyable to play with, but they also watch out for the safety of their owners, regardless of the age of the person. This is the tale of a dog that would not let its owner's infant child sleep alone in the bedroom. And once the parents were aware of the reason, they made the decision to contact the authorities. Everything started out the way one may have anticipated it would, with David and Jessy finding out that she was pregnant. They had been trying for a while to start a family, so hearing that they were going to be parents was fantastic news. Benji, their dog, was causing some concern, and it wasn't clear what should be done with him. Although Jessy had heard stories about dogs that wouldn't accept a new baby in the house, she and her husband had high hopes that she would react well when the new addition arrived. Even though they had high hopes, that wouldn't be the case with Benji. They didn't want to be in a position where they had to give her up in the event that things went from bad to worse. Benji soon realized that Jessy was pregnant and began to vocalize his excitement by barking at her stomach, and that made Jessy very nervous. They just couldn't figure out what had suddenly caused Benji to behave in such an unexpected way. They were concerned that she might have picked up on something amiss with the infant despite their best efforts. Perhaps she felt threatened in some other way by the presence of it. Jessy was under the impression that they needed to figure out what was going on before the situation got any worse. So she took Benji to the veterinarian. She was concerned for both her dog and her kid, and she hoped against hope that she wouldn't have to make any difficult decisions. They would have to give up Benji if they had to pick between him and their child. They hoped it wouldn't come to that, though. It would be anything but a simple choice. Not even the vet could assist. As far as anyone could tell, Benji was doing okay, but they cautioned that she should get checked out because Benji might sense that anything is wrong with the baby. Once Jessy called, the doctor told her to come in immediately. Jessy decided to contact Anne, a close friend. Taking her to the doctor was a breeze because she was always there for her. Very away, the front desk staff let them in, and the doctor performed an ultrasound on Jessy. In addition, they ran a battery of other tests, and everything checked out great. There was nothing physically wrong with Benji, but that just piqued Jessy's interest in the matter. After this, it appeared that Jessy absolutely lost it. When the kid finally arrived, it looked like she'd have to make a decision. Unfortunately, Anne was there to provide a comforting shoulder for her to cry on, and if you needed any help with the infant, she was there to provide it. She would be available and happy to watch her kid. With a friend like Anne, Jessy felt at ease knowing she had support when she needed it. The baby girl Jessy and David were expecting arrived a few weeks later and was called Lily. Benji's behavior was still a little off, but it had changed slightly. Jessy and David didn't go anywhere for a while after Lily was born so they could focus on taking care of their newborn daughter. It was at this point that Benji appeared to settle down and his parents returned to the workplace. On the other hand, while Anne was taking care of Lily, she called them with some shocking news. Benji wouldn't let Anne sleep alone when she was minding Lily, it turns out. Jessy expressed her confusion to David, but he didn't place much importance on her words. Apparently, Benji was only being protective of Lily, and he found it endearing. But then Anne called once more, this time sounding absolutely desperate. Once she went upstairs to separate Lily and Benji, Anne was attacked by Benji when she returned downstairs. David realized he had to take action against Benji to deter a repeat performance. David took Benji back to the vet, but this time the results were not encouraging. They insisted that they either find a safe place for Benji to stay or figure out what was making her so agitated right away. There was something odd, but David still didn't want to get rid of Benji. The vet suggested he and his wife could be at fault. In any case, why was Benji so worried about Lily sleeping alone? David knew they weren't the problem, but he started to feel anxious anyway out of a healthy dose of uncertainty. They chose to observe Lily and Benji's dynamic, but Benji looked to have won Lily's heart, and Benji felt the same way too. Benji's behavior changing because of her seemed unlikely, given how close the two of them were. Yet Benji never missed a chance to be by Lily's side whenever she nodded off to sleep. In David's opinion, it wasn't too far-fetched, but he was still perplexed. Anne called again, this time seeming quite concerned. Benji bit her, she claimed. Then David had an epiphany of sorts. Benji's bad behavior was limited to when Anne was present. David told Jessy his worries, but she told him he was overreacting. He was always cool under pressure unless she was around. She argued that Anne couldn't be to blame because Benji wouldn't let Lily sleep alone. But did you really believe that? Still, Jessy reasoned that it would be prudent to set up cameras at home. Anne appeared nervous when they first mentioned the cameras. As it was, David had little faith in her. David watched the first few days' worth of tapes, but he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Benji was overly guarded as usual, but he looked especially concerned about Anne. Her distrust of Anne was profound. After a while, he finally gave up. He shouted at Anne and demanded to know why she was mistreating her child. Anne wasn't amused and said that Jessy's pregnancy had brought out the worst in the dog. Eventually, Jessy showed up. She couldn't believe her partner was accusing her best friend of hurting Lily, and she was furious at David for questioning Anne about it. Jessy warned that if he didn't figure out what was bothering Benji, they'd have to take her to a shelter. Upon realizing that Anne had always claimed that Benji behaved differently at night, David became aware of something. He had not yet reviewed the footage from the nighttime, and when he went to do so, he discovered that all of it had been erased. In response, he created an encrypted backup of the recordings from that night. When he checked the backup the following day, he saw something troubling: an unknown figure climbing into the baby's room through the window. David was at a loss. He couldn't believe his eyes. Yet he did not stop monitoring the situation. He was shocked by what he saw, but felt he had to report it to the authorities immediately. David invited Jessy back to his house by calling her. The police weren't too late to the scene. Once Jessy demanded an explanation, David reluctantly gave her the footage, at which point she sobbed. The police officer commended David and Jessy on their dog's good behavior. Something was off, and she picked up on it immediately. Benji's actions against Anne were clarified by the camera, and the authorities now needed to locate Anne. They questioned her on a variety of topics. She didn't pick up when they called her. When did she disappear? Well, trying to get a grip on things, Benji was in Lily's room at the time. She took off running for a wall and barked at it as the officers entered. The police immediately understood what that meant. They smashed the wall down with a sledgehammer. They hadn't even consulted the homeowners because it was such an emergency. It was ultimately worthwhile, though. A secret storage area could be found. They removed everything from the concealed compartment, where they discovered a safe, and took it all with them. They started a background search on Ann Anderson as they waited for the safe cracker to arrive at the scene. It found out that there was no such person as Anne. Jessy's entire conception of the woman she thought was her friend turned out to be false. Jessy once more lost her composure as a result of her inability to process the facts. Her closest friend of the past 10 years turned out to be a con artist. What exactly was taking place? Benji had been growling at the safe the whole while, but he had never left Lily's side. Everyone was taken aback when the safe cracker was finally successful in getting inside. They discovered cash, jewelry, paperwork, and passports among the items they discovered. When the officers opened up one of the bags, Jessy was shocked to discover Anne's face staring back at her. But who was Anne anyway? They eventually figured out that Anne wasn't actually Anne. She was actually a spy who was wanted in 17 countries for spying. David had access to the national security grid since he was the director of a company that dealt with national security. It is highly possible that Anne had been employed to disclose company secrets by a competing corporation or possibly even another government. During the night, she would work on breaking into his computer and erasing the surveillance recordings. But now, all due to Benji, she had been unearthed at long last. That's all for the video today. We will be right back with more such videos. Until then, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.